All right, it is 6 o'clock and I will call this March 30, 2026 meeting of the Westwood Select Board to order. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, amended on March 28, 2025, Governor Moore Healey signed into law an act extending pandemic-related authorizations related to public meetings, allowing hybrid meeting options for public bodies through June 30, 2027. This March 30, 2026 Select Board meeting will be conducted in hybrid format via Zoom and in person. Good evening and welcome, everyone. I'm Mary Ann Devine Cummings, Chair of the Select Board. With me is my colleague, Joe Carvatera. Also with me is Town Administrator Connor Reed, Deputy Town Administrator Molly Fitzpatrick, Pat Ahern, Town Council, and Tish Healy, Administrative Assistant to the Town Administrator. Good evening and welcome, all of you. We have two residents here in attendance. And how many folks do we have attending remotely, Tish?
We have 5 attendees right now.
5 attendees remotely. Welcome, all of you. If I could please ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you very much. We'll grant permission to Westwood Media Center to record the meeting, and anyone else who wishes to record the meeting. I want to thank Charlotte Lynch from Westwood Media Center for being with us again tonight. And I will move right into the chair's updates. First of all, we have an annual town election coming up on April 28th. Town Clerk Todd Gotti Powers is here with us, and she'll correct me if I get any of this wrong. First of all, the election is Tuesday, April 28th, 2026. The polls will be open at Westwood High School from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. You must be a registered voter to participate. If you have moved in town, you must re-register at your new address. Your voter registration does not transfer automatically, and the registration deadline is Friday, April 17th, 2026. You may register in person, by mail, which must be postmarked on or before April 17th, or online. You may vote in the election by mail. The application deadline is Tuesday, April 21st at 5 p.m. Applications must be received by the town clerk's office by 5 p.m. You may apply by downloading an application online, submitting an online application, or by contacting the town clerk's office to request an application by mail. You may also vote early. The location is the Gillette Meeting Room at the police station, and the dates and times are Thursday, Friday, Saturday, April 14th, 15th, and 16th from 8 a.m. until 4:30 p.m. on each of those 3 days. We also have our annual town meeting coming up on May 4th, also at Westwood High School Auditorium. Official town meeting business will start at 6:30 p.m. Residents will be asked to vote on 31 articles, 15 budget articles, 6 select board articles, 9 planning board articles, and 1 citizens petition. As I will do at every meeting, I'd like to announce the vacancies on our town boards and committees. Whether your interests are in finance, the environment, other areas, we have a variety of opportunities to match your skills and your passions. And we really encourage folks to get involved, especially those who have never served in town government before. We are currently looking for volunteers to fill vacancies on the following boards and committees: the Board of Health, the Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee, the Recreation Commission, Cemetery Commission, Commission on Disability, Historical Commission, the Housing Partnership Fair Housing Committee, and the Westwood Cultural Council. If you are interested, please send a copy of your resume and a statement of interest to Tish Healy at phealy at westwoodma.gov. That's Healy, HEALEY at westwoodma.gov. Also, you can look on the news section of the town website, and we are continuously updating that page with our vacancies. We have a number of celebrations coming up for the month of April here at the library. The library is recognizing April is Autism Acceptance Month, a time to move beyond awareness and toward genuine understanding, inclusion, and celebration of autistic people in the neurodiverse community. In April, the library is proud to feature a display highlighting books by and about autistic individuals, including titles for children, teens, adults, parents, and allies. The library will also be celebrating National Arab American Heritage Month with a book display. And April is also, glad Lynn Beatty is here, National Poetry Month. And throughout April, the library will have a Poetry Month display showcasing collections for every taste, from the contemporary spoken word to beloved classics. We will also be sharing our own favorite poems here at the library and working with Poet Laureate Beth Swinning on special programming that invites residents to pick up a pen and write their own poems. A couple more items. We have been receiving feedback from folks regarding the police, the recruitment of our new police chief, and we thank everyone who has reached out with feedback on that topic. Much like the search for our town administrator, we have sent a survey internally to all members of the police department, and there is also a survey that is available for all residents to respond to provide us with their feedback on their priorities in that search. That survey has gone out over social media. It is on the homepage of the website. It's been in the Westwood Flyer. And I understand we've already received over 200 responses, which is great. But we would certainly like more people to participate. And the deadline to participate in that survey is 11:59 p.m. on April 6th. April 6th. So please participate. It is important. I also want to reiterate that the priority here is getting the right person in that job, however long that may take. The priority is on finding the right person for that job, and Town Administrator Reed will talk a little more about that search in a moment. Lastly, I want to address a couple of issues with our meetings. We understand that the audio has not been perfect at times, and when we get questions that might come from the audience, I'm going to do my best to repeat the questions so that the audio picks it up better. I also understand that the setup here is not perfect. We got some feedback on that, and believe me, I would much prefer that people online are not looking at me in profile. But this is the setup that we need to use for the time being. It has to do with the situation of the microphones. So we appreciate your patience with us. We are going to be moving across the hall to the main community room once that gets outfitted. So we know this is not perfect, and we appreciate your bearing with us. With that, I will turn it over to Town Administrator Reed for his update.
Thanks, Marianne. I have a few items I want to touch on tonight. The police chief process and a couple of acknowledgements for some board employees and departments for some great work. So to build on your update of the police chief process, both the board at the meeting last week, residents at the meeting, and residents afterwards provided some really good feedback to the town as far as the process, and some of that has been incorporated into what we're doing moving forward. And I'd like to address some of those. The first is timing. So when this was presented last week, we acknowledged the timeline and the pending retirement of Chief Silva. But as Marianne said, I'd like to reiterate that the number one priority is getting it right. The chief is one of the most important positions in Westwood. The board, our police officers, our residents understand this. In my career, I have recruited both police and fire chiefs. I have done both internal and external processes. And so I have seen these processes and I take them extremely seriously. The timeline is ultimately going to be driven by the outcomes from the interview and assessment process, as well as the town's bylaws. We're not going to be rushing a permanent appointment to avoid an interim or acting process. We've also had some questions and feedback on the internal assessment and whether or not that means it's a fait accompli that it will only be an internal candidate. That's not the case. And rather than kind of speaking off the cuff about that, I'm going to read verbatim from the job posting that was shared with the department, but also posted online for the community, which states the town will conduct a multi-stage interview and assessment process for qualified internal candidates to determine a potential promotion to the chief, and reserves the right to broaden the scale of the assessment to external candidates if deemed in the best interest of the town. Submitting for this posting and or being invited into any stage of the interview and assessment process does not guarantee advancement through that process or appointment as chief. For some context, Westwood has in recent years had numerous lieutenants within the police department sought out and hired by other agencies to be chiefs in those communities. Westwood has also used internal promotional processes, including the fire department for fire department leadership. So the process is not internal only, but it is internal first. As the postings to the internal candidates make clear, the town reserves the right to broaden that pool, and that choice could extend the timeline, and that's okay because it's not about speed, it's about doing it right. A third item I want to touch on ties into timing as well, which is the town's bylaws. Those bylaws state that notice of the position has to be publicly posted, which it has been as of last week. And that permanent appointment by the select board, who are the appointing authority and the final deciders on that candidate, may follow no fewer than 60 days from that posting. The town will follow this timeline, meaning that a permanent appointment by the board won't occur before May 26th. Given Chief Silver's retirement occurring earlier that month, the town will appoint an acting or interim chief for that gap, or longer if needed, to ensure the right permanent promotion or hire is made. And then the fourth thing I wanted to touch on that Mary Ann covered a lot of, stole a little bit of my thunder, on resident feedback and input. But again, as someone who applied as a candidate from the outside, one of the things that was very helpful was that there were surveys done of staff and of public. That is going on here now, but we also are working to identify, we hope to appoint at least one Westwood resident who has public safety expertise, so that we can, on one of the stages of panel interviews, get that kind of outside agency, but inside town as a resident perspective directly in the hiring process. So again, I appreciate and administration appreciates the feedback on this important process. We look forward to bringing a qualified candidate forward to the board at the process's conclusion. And those who are interested and who have not yet taken the police chief survey can find it right on the front page of the Westwood website, which is westwoodma.gov. And again, it's also been shared through our social media and allowed in the Westwood Briar as well. A second update I'd like to give is regarding the Finance and Warrant Commission. I just want to say thank you to Chair Bill Bruce and Vice Chair Mike Gay and all the members of the Finance Commission for their collaboration on this year's budget process and on the town meeting warrant. This is my first rodeo here on this. It's a bit of a different structure than where I came from. And the members that were really engaged, they were very thoughtful, and I really appreciated how much time they spent on the process, and I look forward to continuing to work with them. And finally, just a kind of update on some of the activities I've been doing to try to make sure that I'm getting up to speed here. I want to thank and acknowledge Director Coulthart in the Department of Youth and Family Services, who today invited me to their staff meeting to learn more about their mission and their work, and just to say that I was so impressed with the breadth of the services that are offered here in Westwood by that department, and so inspired by their commitment to the families and children in this community. So thank you to Katie and her team. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. All right, we will move to public and press.
And we invite any of our residents to come forward to, if you have a question or a comment.
I'm never shy, so now you go.
Please make sure to give us your name and address, and we ask folks to limit their comments to 3 minutes. Please, welcome.
Eileen Siegel, 257 Alder Road. For the past 5 years, I've only graced the school committee with my presence, but I'm
Welcome.
It's,
But I am here tonight because I'm speaking in support of the stop sign being proposed at the intersection of Briar and Alder Road. I live at, as I said, 257 Alder, and I moved in July of 2018, and I got a dog a few months afterwards. And something I noticed very quickly is how fast cars would drive past my house. Then I don't have dogs. Now I have a daughter. I didn't bring her at the show, but here she is. Very, yes, thank you. I made her myself. But what I will say is we have 5 children between the ages of 3 and 7 between Sumac and Oak Street, and that's not including the grandchildren of a house on the corner or the child that lives right where it opens. And the sidewalks there, they are in disrepair, and it's not a complaint because, again, things have to be prioritized in town, but it makes it very hard for even the most athletic of children to navigate their bike on these sidewalks. So what is safer is on the road right there. What's not safe is the speed at which cars come around the corner. Even when she was in a baby carriage, I've been scared many, many times. A few weeks ago, somebody wasn't paying attention, and it was very scary for me. She was on her bike. And again, it's the speed. It's the speed coming around that corner. You can see that there is like a signpost that comes out of the ground there. Honestly, I can't recall if a stop sign was there when I moved in 2018, but what I can tell you is it is like a bent signpost. So I do not know what sign was there, but there was something. I do know the stop sign. But I am just here tonight to share that there are lots of young children in the neighborhoods. It is a loop, and I don't think people's behavior is going to change. So I'm asking for the town support and adding that extra measure of safety, and consider adding a stop sign there so that people are forced to slow down and stop before they round the corners where all of our children are. That's all I have to say about that. And thank you for the survey. I took it and it's awesome. So I'm glad you brought that up. So,
Thank you so much. Is there anyone online?
No open questions right now.
Hello, hi there. I'm Erin Sibley, 182 Bay Colony Drive. I just want to thank you for the survey as well, for taking that feedback, and I think it's great that you have so much response. I hope that continues. I have a question about I have 2 questions, and one has to do with the internal hiring first. I don't know anybody personally inside the police department, but I just question whether the town gets the best applicant by only opening it up. If I understand, they only open up to the public if somebody hasn't been found and they're already internally. And I'm not sure if the town might not get a better candidate pool, and you may end up still hiring somebody internally, but opening that up to a wider pool. So I asked the board to consider that, and maybe there are union issues or something else, and I'm not aware of that. I asked the board to consider that. And I also really liked that when Connor was being hired, the select board conducted the final interviews with the last 3 candidates in a select board meeting that the public was entitled to watch. And I would ask that we would consider even doing that as well if we get down to the final candidates.
Just
Please.
one clarification, that where the board is the appointing authority to final an individual act, will be probably what that has to be.
Excellent. Good. All right. That was it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No questions. No questions right now. Madam Chair.
Oh, yes,
I
I'm
just
sorry.
wanted to,
Madam Clerk, please.
make a revision to the early voting numbers that you had mentioned.
Oh, yes, please.
Okay, in person. So it's Thursday, April 16th, Friday, April 17th, and Saturday, April 8th.
That's not what I said.
That's what it wasn't new. It was a typo on the form.
Okay.
Oh,
I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you so much. And I apologize.
That's okay. No, we did not.
sorry, it's 15,
Making the correction.
16, 17, 18, correct?
16, 17, 19.
So we're clear, April 16, 17, and 18 for early voting.
Yes.
Thank you.
8 a.m. to 1:30.
Thank you very much. Any questions on that?
No questions.
Okay, well, thank you everyone very much who participated. We will now move on to scheduled action. And the first is a school committee request for a special education reserve fund transfer. We did talk about this at our last meeting, but this agenda item is now coming before us. I think I can turn this over to Town Administrator Reed.
Thank you. So as the board will recall at your last meeting and as a subsequent Finance and Warrant Committee Commission meeting last week, there was a presentation by the Westwood Public Schools for a warrant article that is associated with this, which is to transfer in fiscal 27 the amount of $680,000 into the Special Ed Reserve Fund. This is the request that is kind of the predicate to that, which is a request to transfer $680,000 out of that for the current fiscal year based on some unanticipated costs of special education that again, the committee presented last week.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. At the last meeting, the superintendent, Tim Pipavar, and the school committee chair, Maya Plotkin, were here and gave us some of the background on this, which is that as a town, we must educate every child, and there are expenses we are required to pay, and unfortunately, the state does not reimburse the town for all of those expenses that we must pay in order to educate every child. So that is why we have the Special Education Reserve Fund, and certainly in favor of it. So I will entertain your motion, Joe.
I'd be happy to. I'd like to make a motion that the select board vote to raise and appropriate and or transfer from available funds the sum of $680,000 to the Special Education Reserve Fund established in accordance with the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40.
Point of order, Joe.
Yep.
Sorry, I think that's this motion. Yeah.
Oh, I was doing that one too. Okay, I'm sorry. If the select board to approve its funds. Yeah, about $680,000 from the Special Education Reserve Fund for special education costs at the top.
I will second that motion out of necessity. All in favor?
Aye.
That's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. All right, we will move on to our next item for scheduled action, which is with respect to a stop sign request at Alder Road. Ms. Siegel has already previewed this for us, and with us is Edward Hennessy, the proponent of this article, and also Officer Lieutenant Baker. First of all, I want to thank you, Mr. Hennessy, for bringing this forward. It is a good item, and obviously engage your neighbors on it. So thank you very much for doing that. The floor is yours.
Yep. Thank you very much for the invitation to speak and for considering this matter. So as being very eloquently put it, people drive way too quickly. Probably the case across the world at this point, but in our neighborhood in particular, it's hard not to feel sometimes that people are driving way too quickly. In speaking to neighbors about the issue, whether or not we would put a stop sign at this intersection, a couple of people have commented that down the road further people seem to accelerate at a certain point. My house is the first one in, and turning off of Goat Street, and it feels like it's a bit of a cut through, and people tend to raise it down. So I'm not looking for a panacea at this point, as much as to say this stop sign would at least begin to foible and rectify one challenge. So Alder Road is I'm sorry, I apologize. I live at 266 Alder Road. I've been a resident of the town for I guess 12 years. And I have 3 children in the schools that all grew up in, my neighbor is like there. So, Alder Road is a sort of starts at the bottom of Oak Street and then goes all the way up to Finsview. The first major intersection you come to after traveling north Alder Road is Briar Lane. And so basically there's no stop sign on Alder in either direction. And nor is there a stop sign on Briar Lane as you approach on the road. People traveling eastbound or southbound that eventually curves eastbound on Briar have to turn either left or right onto Briar Lane. Common sense would say slow down, look and see if traffic is coming. And to be fair, probably 99 people out of 100 do just that. But there's been plenty of times over my time in the neighborhood where people have clearly just barreled through. I have dash cam footage from this time last year of a near collision as I was coming up from work. So now just couldn't care less that there's a potential for a car to be coming. And one of the other complications is especially in the summer months, there's vegetation on one of the neighbors' properties that can obstruct the view. Briar is also a slight incline coming into Alder, so it's hard to see as people that approach this intersection if there's traffic coming. And just human nature being what it is, people on the rush, people are busy. There's been a number of near misses, and my concern is that it's only a matter of time before there's actually like an incident type of either cause property damage or some injury. So I went around my neighbors in the vicinity of this intersection. Everybody was resoundingly supporting of this. Eileen, in particular, said she should be here to support this. Not a single person had any objections. It seemed like it almost was the case that there would have been a sign there at some point because the fact that there isn't is a bit perplexing. But nevertheless, I encourage the select board to consider this matter and in the interest of public safety, agree to put a stop sign at that intersection.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hennessy. I imagine the situation is also worsened with the snowbanks. The recent storm.
Yeah, I think in speaking with one of the neighbors, the sign that I did refer to could have been the street sign saying that is what street it was and a snowplow and taking it out. But nevertheless, I'm not entirely sure if there was a sign there at some point, but it feels like it's begging for a stop sign. I can't imagine it would be that disruptive to anybody's travel to take the extra second to stop and then halfway. What it, really sort of implicit in anyone who drives the city's way anyhow.
Thank you very much. And happy to have Officer Baker here from the Westwood PD. And I understand you've taken a look at this.
Yeah, so I think Ed explained it very thoroughly, including the resident that spoke earlier. I 100% agree with their concerns. So I went out over the past couple of months and surveyed the area. It's a 3-way stop sign. So, a 3-way intersection. So Alder Road runs through it, Briar Lane meets Alder Road. Currently there's nothing there. Common sense wise for people, especially with the field of view, if you're coming off of Briar Lane, it is difficult to see over to the left and get a clear view of any traffic or any pedestrians that are crossing over there. Common sense would dictate for people to at least slow down or maybe come to a stop so that you can confirm that it's clear. But as we all know, common sense is not always so very financial. So Ed's recommendation, I agree with. I think we should put one stop sign there for Briar Lane to basically have a visual aid for drivers to give right away for other motorists on Alder Road.
Thank you, Officer, for taking a close look at that. Joe, any questions or comments?
No, thanks, Mark.
Good.
No.
All right.
Okay.
I
I
like
think
it.
we're in favor.
Yes. How's the presentation?
Thank you very much. And appreciate it.
I'd like to make a motion to select board to approve the amendment to the traffic rules and orders, specifically Schedule 3 isolated stop signs for stop sign at the intersection of Alder Road and Briar Lane.
Second that motion out of necessity. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It is a unanimous vote in favor. Mr. Hensley, thank you very much. To you and your neighbors for bringing this forward, for being here tonight. Thank you, Officer Baker, for taking a close look.
Absolutely.
Hopefully this will make your neighborhood much safer.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Right, the sign's going on Briar Lane, correct?
Yes, just one sign on Briar.
Madam Chair, we do have one hand raised in the chat. I'd like to Kathy Waller's 283 Farm Lane.
Sure.
And then we have one other question from a John Henderson. It looks like he started to form his thought, but he didn't leave his name, his address, or continue his question. So he just says why is and what's. But I can let Kathy, if you want to allow her to speak.
Sure.
Okay.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Tish, for seeing my hand. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't overlooked by some technology flaw. But I would like to echo the comments made by Erin Sibley about this process with the police chief search. I am seriously disheartened by information being shared around town about some serious issues at Westwood Police Department. I would like the select board to slow down the process and assess the assertions made about the department to the best of their ability. I think it's premature to want to hire somebody without understanding what the issues are in the department. And secondly, I'm wondering, since the schedule is so compressed, and it looks like April 14th is scheduled for the assessment center for any qualified candidates that may move forward. Has an assessment center been chosen? And if yes, what was the process to choose the center and what center was chosen? Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Sure. So as to the question of whether or not an assessment center has been chosen, yes, it is a firm called Paro Associates. It is a company that runs internal exam assessment centers, including for the promotion of police and fire chiefs throughout the Commonwealth. It is run by a former fire chief and also has a former police chief working with the firm, and they bring in law enforcement and public safety experts to do these assessment processes that we use as sort of for promotional processes in Westwood Fire. I also have experience, I should say, working with this firm with chief and other promotional exam processes in my former community.
Okay, we do have another hand raised, Sharon Feeney. Go ahead, Sharon. Sharon, can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, Dodie Russell Ave, Sharon Feeney. I agree with Kathy and Erin that we need to slow down this process. Right now, there is nobody qualified within the department to take over the chief's position. And the handling of what's going on within the police department is not acceptable. It's not acceptable by town leaders to share certain information that shouldn't have been shared. So I think that we really need to slow down the process. Everybody should apply equally, whether you're internal or external. That's the way most departments do it. And I just feel that we're rushing to fill this position, and we really don't need to. We need to put the brakes on. And we need to have public input on a panel for a new police chief. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will say a word just about our public comment policy. We would ask for folks to make comments during the public comment period, which is on the agenda. If folks have questions on existing agenda items as we go through the meeting, by all means, we will entertain those, assuming that we can in the flow of the meeting. But otherwise, we want to keep the meeting moving. And if we have time, we will take comments and questions at the end. So I'm going to move on to our next scheduled action item, which is a proposed on-street parking plan and potential traffic rules and orders amendments. And with us is, again, Officer Frank Baker and Nora Lockney, our Community and Economic Development Director. Welcome, both of you. Welcome, please.
Yeah, sure.
So just to give you a little background on where this came from. We have a new business on Washington Street, 190 Washington, you know, doors and LIAISON. And when they opened up right around Thanksgiving, they had some issues with on-street parking. They found that some of their employees and guests were parking. Let me take a step back. On this part of Washington Street, there are not designated parking spaces. There's where the road is wide enough, there's an open parking lane on either side of the street. And on the side where 190 Washington Street was, cars were parking within that designated open parking lane. However, they were parking too close to the intersections of Alder Way and Wentworth Street, which is a problem. Our parking rules and orders, and I think it's a state law throughout Massachusetts, say that you cannot park within 20 feet of an intersection. So if people are parking there, I believe they got warnings. I don't know if they've been actually got a ticket.
And that warning was based off of an existing town bylaw, which is parking within 20 feet of a budding intersection.
Well, because there are no signs and there are no hash marks saying you can park there, people were confused. So Michael Barsani, the owner of Lords and Ladies, asked if we would consider striping or signing where exactly you can park and then you can't. So we had a meeting with Michael and Jennifer Barsani back in December and suggested that they work with Beta to develop a plan, because Beta is the firm that the DPW uses for striping. And they did that. They produced a plan that showed originally 18 parking spaces on the east side of Washington Street. Then we met internally to look at that, and Officer Baker was concerned that some of the parking spaces they were closing were just too close to the intersections. They were more than 20 feet away, but they were close enough that it was still impeding sight distance for vehicles coming out of Alder Way, Wentworth Street, and Grafton Ave. So we made some revisions to the plan, sent it back to them. I think what we're set on now is a plan that would allow 10 spaces on the east side of Washington Street. Those spaces would be clearly designated, and then all of the areas outside of those spaces would be hash, so that it would be clear that one could park there.
Thank you. And so now the question is, what, if any, discussion has been had with neighbors in this area?
There has not been. So this is introducing it to the select board for you to consider whether you think that some type of parking arrangement should be in this area, and then invite residents in the area to voice their concerns. And the plan that we had discussed and that was sent to you also showed no parking zones for the first 100 feet on Wentworth, Waldo, and Grafton. I think that was a little bit of a misunderstanding between and Officer Baker. And we do not think those no parking zones are needed at this time.
So I don't think it's a huge concern. My primary concern was to address the parking along Washington Street. Nora brought to my attention that there is an existing no parking in the traffic rules and orders for those streets.
Not for Waldo Way, but for Wentworth,
yeah,
and for Grafton.
For Wentworth and Grafton. So we can look into those at a later date, but the concern that we want to address here was this all started from residents on Waldo Way. Wentworth. My office got flooded with calls with residents trying to get out of Wentworth onto Washington Street. And what was happening was there was at least 3 vehicles that would be parking for patrons of Lords and Ladies between Wentworth and their driveway. Now that line of sight was completely obstructed and blocked. When I surveyed the area, I was in a fully marked pickup truck. So I'm raised like higher than most other vehicles, and I almost got TO'd in that intersection as I'm trying to clear emerge onto Washington Street. So I want to address that concern. We revised the plans so that there was We made modifications along Waldo Way as well. But we revised the plan so that, there's only one parking stall allowed between Wentworth and the driveway. So I think that like helps to appease the business, but at the same way it mitigates like the hazard that was contributed before with all those vehicles being parked there.
Nora, as our economic development director, what is your view in terms of the need for additional spots to support this business, understanding that's going to be balanced, obviously against safety and in residents' interest in that properties?
So there seems to be need for additional, or there needs to be need for some on-street parking. When Lords and Ladies was first approved by the planning board, it was approved with a special permit allowing a reduction in parking spaces. They were one space short for what they needed to design their property the way they designed it. I believe they indicate to the planning board that their parking is sufficient. Even without that space, they would be fine, and they would go forward just as is. Based on the number of chairs they had, that was suitable. However, the parking calculations were based on the number of employees that they had working at the time. When they were opening, before they opened, they were planning to have a certain number of employees. By the time they actually opened, Sally and Rocco's had employees, and a number of musicians from Sally and Rocco's came to work there as well. So they have the same number of chairs, but much more frequent use of those chairs, more employees there at one time, and that has driven the need for more parking. So the off-street parking that they have does not appear to be sufficient to meet the needs of the business. So they do need to use some on-street parking. Right now, with the unmarked spaces, there's sufficient room to park cars there. It's just the question of whether those parking out parking should close to the intersections. So if you were to approve striped parking in this area, it would better define where the parking spaces are and help those customers and employees to know where it's safe parking that's at. Joe, questions, comments?
I have a couple of questions. And good for you for going in the field and looking, because Wentworth Street just epitomizes you can't do everything looking at a plan. The grade there is
The
terrible.
grade is
For those
very
cars.
low. It's
Yeah.
it's tough. Like in general, without any obstruction, it's tough to get out of there.
Yes.
You work up, and then you add like multiple obstructions into the next.
And you're, like you said, you're up in a truck, so
Yeah.
it's bad. I just have two questions. Up at the top of it, opposite St. Dennis, you've got a stripe there. Is that because of the bus stop?
No, so that was to give also a little, some clearance for visibility for people that were want to take a left out of Wentworth Street. Are you talking about that 30 feet?
No, at the very top.
Oh.
There is also a park driveway curb cut to the right.
Yes.
But that the intent there is to provide visibility of the crosswalk.
And that's 25 feet.
And that lines up with where you would be able to park without blocking the driveway anyhow. So if you come to the end of that 25-foot house mark, now you can fit a parking space before you get to the next driveway in that property.
Okay. And on the bottom, right there, I'm looking at the 45 feet on Grafton Ave. That's just for visibility. Yes. I was guessing the bus stop would be nice, but
There's no bus stop between
Right.
Grafton Ave and.
right, that's right. Now it's the next intersection down. Okay, where do we stand on the no parking on the 100-foot on Waldo and Grafton Ave?
So I think Officer Baker is saying that there's no need to take up the 100-foot no parking on Walder Way at this time. That's a very narrow section. Walder Way has a wide right of way, and so you get to about that last 100 feet, and it's a very narrow wide right of way. I don't think you could physically park a car there without blocking the road anyhow.
Right.
And then Grafton Ave and Wentworth Street already have no parking regulations in our traffic rules. In the case of Grafton Ave, there's no parking allowed anywhere on the north side of the street.
Now, just looking back through the areas, people park there, every single area is photographed, but it's on our rules and orders as no parking. And then with respect to Wentworth Street, there's a prohibition against parking on both sides of the street, going back 185 feet, which is further than what is recommended on this parking. So I think what the board should do is think about what they want to do with those two streets, and either remove the regulations that are currently in effect, those meters, or amend them. For Waldo Way, I don't think you could park there within 100 feet if you wanted to, it's, you'd be blocked from there.
Actually, no, I'm thinking more about myself. As far as making the motion, I'm happy to make a motion for number one tonight. But I'm not interested in making a motion about it. It's too far out, like, no parking on Waldo and Grafton. Would that be? What do you think?
To get residents' input on this.
Okay.
Perhaps before we take a further step, just in case there can be some unintended consequences with this, position on this that we're not aware of, and we're a little wary of doing that without inviting
In all
them in.
honesty, Frank see it with his own eyes. It's not pleasant pulling out of those side streets there. I'd like to see the.
You think that would be immediate
Yes.
safety betterment as far
In
as the
regards
stretch?
to like the no parking 100 feet, like from Wentworth, or are you talking about just the?
Nothing about the striping, but first.
Yeah, where, like, the striping for the parking stalls need to be addressed pretty, yeah.
Yeah.
In regards to the no parking on the side streets, that's not like really the primary concern. I don't think that's an extreme hazard, but if like a resident on Wentworth parks in front of their house.
What Mary Ann's saying, that's something we need to get some feedback on the residents.
Right,
We can do that
absolutely.
at a different meeting, but for now, I'd like to go forward with the situation in Washington.
I'm with you.
Okay.
I'm with you. I think.
I'm not trying to add stuff on our
Yeah,
meetings.
no, I think that makes sense, that it's a safety issue, something being recommended now, so let's do that. So I'm happy to entertain
I'd be happy to. No, that is great.
that.
I'd like to
You and
make,
me both.
I'd like to make a motion for the select board to authorize striping of 10 on-street parking spaces as shown on the attached data plan with adjustment to eliminate spaces in front of the driveway for 158 Washington Street.
I'll second that motion out of necessity. All in favor?
I,
It's a unanimous vote in favor. In addition, I don't know that we need to have a vote, but I think the idea is that we should have another meeting where we invite residents to come to our select board meeting, and hopefully bring them both back, so that we can discuss this further. Does that make sense? Jen?
Absolutely.
Makes sense. Well, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
thanks for checking that out, Frank. Exactly. Good move.
Okay, moving on to our next agenda item, we are discussing town meeting articles, and specifically a proposed change to one of the articles dealing with. Can you do something on this, or Pat?
I believe, General Black, that, was a component.
All right, so it's a little early.
So I think here in the red text is the language of the one incorporate the edge of the letter, was the appropriation, special ed, was I thought.
Because I think that we support there. It has to be this.
That's quite all right. Pat, I have it here. I'm happy to read it if you want.
Fair enough.
Okay, so this is with respect to budget 11. Article appropriation for special education reserve fund. And simply to add to that article, the language that the fund is established in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 13E, or take any other action thereon. Let me read the whole thing in context. To change the language to to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and or transfer from available funds a sum of $680,000 to the Special Education Reserve Fund established in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 15E, or take any other action thereon. As I understand it, Mr. Ahern, this is the more precise legal language that we should include in the language.
I believe that is the case, yes.
Any comments, Joe, questions? No.
I make a motion for the select board to vote to raise and appropriate and or transfer from available funds the sum of $680,000 in Special Education Reserve Fund established in accordance with the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 18, or take any other action thereon.
I will second that motion out of necessity. All in favor?
Aye.
So unanimous vote in favor. Moving on, we are going to talk about posting the annual town meeting, town election and annual town meeting warrant. And I believe we have town clerk, Dottie Powers, with us for that purpose. Welcome again. Thank you.
Would you like to see this to talk about the annual town meeting and election warrant? So they'll both be posted together, and a constable Frank Laker, participate in his vote tonight. They'll be posted, and it has to be posted at least 7 days before. But as soon as the select board signs, we like to get it posted early.
Thank you both very much. We have discussed the warrant extensively over these past few months and voted on it, and so now it is ready to be posted. I will entertain a motion.
I'd be happy to. I'd like to make the motion, select board sign the 2026 annual town election and annual town meeting warrant for the warrant to be posted by the constable throughout the town.
Second that motion out of necessity. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous vote in favor. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, you're welcome. Your help, Sir Edgar, again.
Point of order, Madam.
Yes.
Any wet signature, will you take on that?
No, I'll work for you. Looks like we're signing that tonight.
There's a sign.
Get that book. 5%.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That brings us to our next agenda item, which is Fire Station 1 update.
I have 3 small updates for the board. One is that we held an informational session last week for potential owner project managers for the feasibility study, schematic design, as well as funding. Applications for OPMs are due this week, and interviews for the companies are going to be held late next week. The ECOS One Steering Committee held its first community information session here at the library. It was well attended. It looked like about 10 residents showed up to have a conversation with 3 members of the steering committee. They intend to have 2 more of these informational sessions next week and the week after. They're just finalizing times. Residents are encouraged to follow the project webpage and town social media to be aware of the dates and time for those. And finally, the sprung structure that was procured on an emergency basis is being delivered this coming Wednesday to the Fire Station 1 with construction set to begin.
That is great. How long is that construction expected to take?
Between a week and 10 days.
Great.
Weather dependent.
Yes. Thank you very much, Molly. Joe, any questions?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving ahead to old business, we are going to discuss the Islington Center redevelopment traffic signal timing study, and with us again is Nora Lockney. Thank you, Nora.
Nora.
This is quite old business.
Yes, it is. So we were hoping that the foundation would have been for today, actually. Giorgio Petruzziello is responsible for that portion of the project. Mass Bay Electric is responsible for actually putting in the new mast arm and moving the signals.
And Giorgio's contractor, Tony, was prepared to do it today, but the folks at Mass Bay Electric were not available. They have scheduled it for to begin on April 6th, but I don't actually have a confirmation. The week of April 6th, I don't have a confirmation on what day that will occur. I was told that the DigSafe was out there today and marked off the obstructions, that they could work around and find a location where they can get that established.
Can you remind us, Nora, so once that happens?
So the first thing, so they pour the foundation, there has to be time for the concrete to cure. That's weather dependent, so I don't know exactly what the amount of time is. I've asked them by the date for when they'll be done. Once that concrete foundation is cured, then they can come and install a new mast arm. That's the big pole that holds the new traffic signal. Once they install that, they'll be able to move the traffic signal heads. Some of them are moving from one pole to the other. And then when that is complete, they will remove the old mast arm that they no longer need. And then Tony will come back and repair the sidewalk. So I've asked for a specific timeline for each of those events and how long they'll take. And I was advised that I would be getting that next week or so. But I don't have it to share with you today.
Thank you, Nora. Joe?
Thanks so much, Noah, staying on top of it. It's been, Marion, it's been, since we ordered it that night, it's been 748 days. So, and I know you've been all over, so thank you so much for that.
Well, most of that delay was the ordering of the mast arm. So the steel took until the last week in December. It arrived between Christmas and Thanksgiving. And then we'll get the issue with the weather, not allowing for the concrete work to be done. So hopefully now it'll move quickly. Now it's just a matter of working schedules from the chief construction teams.
Great. If you could keep us updated, we'd appreciate it. Thank you very much for all your work on this matter. All right, that brings us to select board liaison reports. I do not have anything to report. Joe, do you?
Oh, I do. The Housing Partnership for Fair Housing. I just received something from Amanda today that the Housing Partnership Plan they presented to us was submitted to the state. And part of that, Noah, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of that is it includes the possibility of reviewing Chapter 40Y, which is a new law to help facilitate starter homes.
That's a recommendation in the housing production plan.
Right. Which we're all very excited about. And that's it for my report.
Thank you, Joe. Our next meeting will be April 14th at 6 p.m. Also a hybrid meeting, also here in the Westwood Main Library small conference room. That is all we have on our agenda for this evening. Any other comments for the good of the order?
We have a few questions in the chat
We have a few questions in the chat.
from the same person. John Henderson, 60 Whitney Ave. He said, why was and is Don Agatangelo's hearing not publicized as a public hearing? And also what happened with the chief's town-owned Tesla?
I could say that the hearing being referred to is an internal administrative hearing. It's not a public hearing that we would see here. It is open to the public if the officer wants to invite anyone to come to it, which they did. In terms of the Tesla, there was a snow-related accident involving the Tesla in February of 2025. That's all the information I have on the top of my head about.
Thank you, Mom.
That is it. No answers.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Gary, make the motion to adjourn the meeting at 7 p.m.
Second that motion out of necessity. All in favor?
Aye.
And let's vote in favor. Thank you, everyone. Good night.